India and China are finally disengaging from a major flashpoint. There's a breakthrough, and it took 16 rounds of talks to get here. It is happening here, the Gogra-hotsprings border area in the western Himalayas. India and China are pulling back their troops from patrolling Point 15, also known as PP-15. This was one of the most pressing friction points in this dispute. Here's why. Reports say at PP-15, soldiers from both sides were locked in an eyeball-to-eyeball standoff. The India and China border is over 3,000 kilometers long. In several regions, the boundary is not demarcated. That's why there's a dispute. Along the line of actual control, the Indian Army has set up these patrolling points. There are 65 of them in all. Indian troops are well within their rights to access these areas for patrolling. They are important not just from a security standpoint. These patrolling points are necessary for India to assert control over its territory. And the PLA had sent up its troops right up to the patrolling point 15. This has raised the tension significantly. You must be wondering why China targeted this region. Why did it deploy troops there? It is because this area is of great importance to China. It divides China's two most sensitive provinces, Xinjiang and Tibet. That's why China was trying to control it. India's concerns are also driven by the events of the past. Chinese troops had targeted hot springs in 1962. That's during the Sino-India War. It lasted a month. India suffered a setback during this conflict. China was successful in consolidating its positions. But the hot springs area was not a flashpoint. Yes, the Chinese troops did target it, but the fighting there was feeble in 1962. Not this time. There was a serious build-up. The standoff at patrolling point 15 has lasted over 2 years, and all through this time, China has pushed its claims hard. Then why disengage now? What are the possible factors that led to this disengagement? There are a few reasons that come to mind. First, the upcoming Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO summit. It is happening next week in Uzbekistan. Chinese President Xi Jinping will attend it. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to go. There is intense speculation over this event. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi haven't met since November 2019. They will be in the same room after almost 3 years. Will they greet each other? Will there be a pull aside? All these questions are hanging in the air. Any dialogue between the two leaders was unlikely until today. Will this disengagement now revive the chances for dialogue? We'll have to wait and see. But China has been sending out some signals. Back in March, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited India. Beijing tried to reset ties with New Delhi. Here's the pitch Wang Yi presented. This is from Chinese state mouthpiece Xinhua. They reported about Wang Yi's visit to India. Wang said that China and India, as two rational major developing countries, should put their border issue at a proper position in bilateral relations. The border issue should neither define nor affect the overall development of the China-India ties. This is what the Chinese foreign minister told the Indian leadership. Beijing wanted to keep the border issue on the back burner and focus on other aspects of the relationship. We all know how that went. India completely rejected China's pitch. New Delhi sent out a clear message to Beijing. There can be no normalization of ties until the border standoff is settled. Listen to what India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar had to say.
Much of the future of Asia depends on how relations between India and China develop in the foreseeable future. For ties to return to a positive trajectory and remain sustainable, they must be based on the three mutuals: mutual sensitivity, mutual respect, and mutual interest. Their current status is, of course, well known to all of you. I can only reiterate that the state of the border will determine the state of the relationship.
The state of the border will determine the state of the relationship. It is as simple as that. Remember, this standoff is not yet over. Troops from both sides still remain engaged in a face-off. in Depsang and Demchok. They are perhaps the only remaining flashpoints right now. Beyond that, each side still has around 50 to 60,000 troops along the line of actual control. So there is still a long way to go. For more on this story, former diplomat Ashok Sajanhar is joining us live from Liverpool. Ashok, thank you very much for making time and welcome to WION. How do you see this disengagement at the Gogra-hotsprings?
Eric, I feel that this is a tactical move by the Chinese. You know, for the last 2.5 years, since April 2020, what the Chinese have been trying to tell India is that the India-China border issue should be kept to one side. It should be kept on the back burner. And as far as trade relations are concerned, economic relations are concerned, other ties are concerned, they should continue as before. That should be as normal. Now, this was the sort of strategy that was pursued from 1988 when the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited China. And at that time, it was thought that we will continue, these two tracks will continue in parallel, that we will continue to discuss the border issue, the line of actual control, as to how, exchange the maps, how to get peace and tranquility there. We signed 5 agreements, 93, 96, 2005, 2012, 13. But we saw as to how China did not pay any heed to these agreements. And in April 2020, it amassed so much of, whether in terms of soldiers or ammunition and equipment and tanks and other things on its side of the border, which was total violation of the 1993 and 96 agreements. So India was not definitely going to bite the bait. And right now, I think it has become quite clear to the Chinese that unless there are moves that are made by them on the border, there is no hope of any movement forward. I'll not use the word normalization, but no hope of any forward movement as far as relations between the two countries are concerned. And you have very rightly brought out that we have the 22nd meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which takes place in Samarkand, Uzbekistan next week. And this will in fact be the first in-person meeting of the SCO, which will be taking place after 2019. So, and here India, Prime Minister Modi is expected to participate because India takes over as the chair of the SCO summit from Uzbekistan this year. And Mr. Xi Jinping has also now traveled outside his country for the last more than 2 years. And since this is an organization which is supposed to be in which China has huge influence and it has been paying a lot of attention, so it is expected that Xi Jinping would also attend. So I think to bring down the temperatures and to have the possibility of maybe a bilateral meet, pull aside, as you put it, then to bring down the temperatures, maybe this is a tactical move on the part of China.
Ashok, let me talk about the reflection on the larger picture here, or the relation between the two Himalayan neighbors and the road ahead. Briefly, can you tell us what can we expect?
I think the last 2 years, there has been such a huge shock to India as far as the reliability, the credibility, the trustworthiness of China is concerned. So I think China will really have to make a large number of moves before some element of its credibility and trustworthiness can be restored. So I don't expect to see much in terms of maybe the atmospherics, in terms of the ambience. There might be some reduction in the tension between the two countries. But on substantive issues, I do not foresee any major change, because there are still outstanding issues, Eric, as far as the line of actual control in the eastern sector is concerned. We have Depsang issue, we have Demchok issue. Of course, the Chinese are saying that these precede the April 2020 tensions that have come about. But I think the level of trust or the distrust between India and China, particularly as far as India is concerned, because China says something and does something entirely different. Right. So first, there has to be some forward movement in restoration of that credibility before we can expect anything significant happening on the ground between the two countries.
Live from Liverpool, United Kingdom, thank you very much, former diplomat Ashok Sajanhar, for making time and for talking to WION today.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.